It's very hard to say what the worst thing is that happened to Canada in the last 2 weeks, because 6 things are worse, and each of them should be fatal to the Trudeau government. But I think perhaps the worst was the decision to suspend Parliament on Friday from discussing the Emergency Act because of the action that was instituted by the police as a consequence of the Emergency Act. He's accused the Conservatives of supporting the people who waved swastikas and tried to associate the truckers with Nazis, and went after a Jewish Conservative MP. Many countries in Europe had started to lift vaccine mandates, and that had been lifted in many states in the US, that none of that was occurring in Canada at all until the truckers started this protest. And so now these 5 provinces have started to lift their mandates, and more are going to follow. And they aren't claiming that that's a consequence of the trucker protest, but the truth of the matter is that we know that this is being run by opinion poll, which is a terrible way to run a government, and that nothing had changed before the truckers started to protest. And then we should also point out that we have an 86% vaccination rate in Canada. That's 1-dose vaccination anyways, and that no one with any sense would ever think that it would be possible to push vaccine rates above approximately 90%. And so it's terrible naivety to assume that it can be pushed beyond that. Well, we want to figure out, well, why did the truckers get demonized, and what are Canadians supposed to think about that, especially because FinTrack, which tracks financial transactions and is supposed to be taking care of such things as terrorist financing, has no evidence of suspicious transactions occurring in relationship to this protest, and that's was documented by CTV, who is hardly, you could hardly accuse of being sympathetic to the truckers. So there's that. Then there's just exactly what is the emergency here, and why is it reasonable under any conditions whatsoever to consider this an emergency of such major proportions that our basic civil liberties have to be lifted. Then the ability to freeze and seize bank accounts, which generates distrust in the banks. The precedent to define retroactive crime, because now funding a perfectly legal protest through legal means has been criminalized and associated with terrorism and organized crime, and can be punished without trial by fiat, and that appears to be permanent. Then we have the extension and redefinition of crime, because mischief has now been expanded as a category to arrest people without cause, and now you can aid and abet mischief.